So now that it is 2025, I think it's fair to assume that we are getting the next Battlefield installment this year, which is pretty exciting to say, honestly. And while there hasn't been any actual confirmation of that, it'd be an absolute shock to not get the game this year based on them announcing the game late in 2024, as well as a lot of the rumors about extensive playtesting coming up early this year. And so today I wanted to start off the year on this channel talking about exactly what I'm hoping to see from Battlefield 2025, as I do think this is pretty much the most important launch in the franchise's history. Today's video is brought to you guys by Aura, but we're going to hear a little bit more from those guys later on in the video. Now, the first thing that I really want to see from the new Battlefield title this year, and this one sounds super obvious and almost pointless to mention, but this is a steady launch. Now, like I said, it kind of feels almost pointless to even mention that because obviously we all want every game we're excited about to launch well, so it kind of makes that point redundant. But with the way the Battlefield games have launched over not only the recent years, but honestly the last 10 to 15 years, I do think this is something that is actually worth mentioning because Battlefield games generally always launch in a very poor state. Even the best Battlefield games back in the day, the likes of Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4, those games had absolutely atrocious launches, and it's something that I think they really need to turn around, not only for this game, but just moving forward into the future. I think this franchise is at the point where if this upcoming game launches poorly, it will almost certainly kill the game right away. Now, obviously, it can turn around. We've seen that with pretty much every Battlefield game, that even when they launch bad, they generally end up in a good state. But I honestly don't think that the community is in a forgiving position right now. We've had a few games now in a row that just haven't been up to standard, and I genuinely think if this game launches poorly, even if it looks like it's got the potential to be awesome by the end of it, I just think people aren't going to stick around. And so I think it's really crucial that they launch this game in a very steady state. To do that, I think they just need to play it safe. I don't need 15 maps at launch and 60 weapons, a heap of content, and just some sort of absurd launch that's like the biggest launch ever. I would much prefer to just get like 8 maps and 30 weapons and just have a very stable launch that's got minimal bugs, minimal balancing issues. There's obviously still going to be bugs and balancing issues and stuff, but if they get it to the point that it launches at, you know, a 7 out of 10 and it's really fun, it's got some work to do, but it plays well and it's all stable, I genuinely think that is way more important than launching at a 10 out of 10 in terms of the amount of content, but filled with bugs and stuff like that. So that is my first hope for the upcoming title, is to honestly just launch it stable. Don't send it too hard early on. Just get the game out there, get it there in a stable state. And from there, that's where they can build on it and really go hard with the amount of content to get the game to where it needs to be. Now, before we go any further, I'm sure a lot of you guys probably won't remember because this was actually on my other channel, the Star Wars channel, but a few years ago, this channel was actually hacked, and only a few days later, my Netflix account was hacked too. And it made me realize how easy it is for these things to happen, especially considering I'm actually pretty safe when it comes to protecting my online data as it is. That's why I'm excited for Aura to be the sponsor for today's video, an app you can get on iOS and Android devices, as well as Mac and Windows too, that combines a secure VPN, an antivirus, a password manager, fraud and identity theft protection, and even a spam list removalist, all rolled into one single app. It comes as an easy to use app that includes everything you need to stay safe online. This thing even scans not only the internet, but even the dark web as well, looking for your email addresses, passwords, and just any other critical data you might have, and then send you an alert if it does find anything out there that might be dangerous, so that you're always one step ahead. Aura will also automatically request the removal of your info on any websites that result in spam emails or phone calls, which will save you guys a hell of a lot of time doing it yourself. And like I mentioned, on top of all of this, it also includes a VPN, allowing you to encrypt all of your browsing history and data online. Now, you guys might already have a VPN, you might already have a password manager, and you might already have an antivirus, but I'd almost guarantee you don't have all of these rolled into one single easy to use app at a price that is on average about 78% cheaper than having all of these apps individually. If you guys are interested in checking Aura out for yourself, you can use my link and start your own 14-day free trial of Aura to test it out for yourself and see if you enjoy it. The link you'll need for that 14-day free trial is aura.com/Sammy, and that link can be found in the description or the pinned comment. Once again, that link is aura.com/Sammy. Sign up for a 2-week free trial right now, and a big thank you to Aura for sponsoring today's video. But with that being said, let's get stuck back back into it. Now, the next thing I really want to see from the upcoming Battlefield game is essentially just a return to the core Battlefield gameplay that we all know and love. I'm thinking back to games like Bad Company 2, Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4, even to an extent Battlefield 1. That to me, and to pretty much the majority of the fan base, I'd have to assume, is what is seen as kind of the golden era of Battlefield. And I feel like that's where we all want to go back to, that classic Battlefield feel that we've kind of been missing in Battlefield 5 and then recently with 2042. Now, we already know that it is going to be 64 players this time around instead of the 128 players that they tried for Battlefield 2042. And we also know that the class system is returning. They've already ruled out the specialist system. Vince Zampella said that in an interview with IGN. And so those are two really good signs. The fact that the class system is back and 64 players is back, those are two of the key pillars to what makes Battlefield feel like Battlefield. On top of that too, I really want it to feel a bit more grounded and like gritty compared to 2042, where that felt a little bit more comical, even though the actual premise for the game was very dark, to be honest. But all the stuff with like Angel's voice lines and McKay constantly talking about how many cups of coffee he's had and stuff like that, it just didn't feel like we were at war in that game. It felt like it was just a cartoony, fun game. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that, but I think that's not what people want from Battlefield. It was always seen as more of a grounded or sort of realistic type of shooter compared to games like Call of Duty, for example. And I think we really need to get back to that in order for this game to start feeling like Battlefield again. Something else I really hope that they focus on in the upcoming title is pretty much just community involvement and actually taking on feedback from the community too. Now, don't get me wrong, they do tend to take on feedback after the game has launched. They did that even really well with 2042, where, yeah, it didn't launch in a good state, but they did listen to our feedback and they did a lot of stuff to change the player base's issues with the game. They fully reworked maps. They got rid of 128 players. They somewhat changed the specialist system back to a sort of class system. And generally, they do tend to do that after launch. But in the lead up to this upcoming game, like I mentioned at the start of the video, there's already been rumors of pretty comprehensive playtesting that will be taking place at some point early this year. And I really hope that they genuinely listen to the feedback from those playtests rather than launching their version of the game. And then when we all hate it, then they start to finally listen to the feedback. On top of that as well, in terms of regular playtesting, getting just random people from around the world to play, they should also be getting creators involved in early previews and stuff for the game. Now, they did do this last time, but most of the people who actually play Battlefield weren't really invited to that until the game was only, you know, a few months away, at which point they can barely actually change anything based on that feedback, whereas they were doing more stuff prior to that with pretty much just random streamers and big creators. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, but in my opinion, they need to get actual Battlefield creators in there, not just the big top streamers in the world. I want to use an example from 2042 where Shroud actually mentioned in a video, for those of you who don't know Shroud, he is essentially just one of the biggest streamers in the world, and he is really good at shooters. He plays a lot of different shooters, so he clearly knows his stuff about the shooter genre, and yet he has never really been a Battlefield streamer. He's never streamed that much Battlefield. He's never played that much Battlefield. He comes more from the lines of like Counter-Strike and those sorts of games, even then evolving into more the Battle Royale genre, but he has never been a Battlefield creator. And so he was giving feedback and he was talking about it in this video that he uploaded. And although some of his points may have been very valid, in my opinion, those are not the people that they need to be listening to. Shroud knows borderline nothing about the franchise compared to the likes of, for example, Jack Frags and Westy and all those sorts of creators who have been covering Battlefield for decades at this point. And so yes, they kind of did do this last time, but I think they just need to hone down on who they actually want to get involved. Get people who know the franchise. Don't get people who just play Fortnite and Apex Legends and games like that, because yes, they may know some little ins and outs of the shooter genre and they may give some valid feedback, but for the most part, they don't know what the franchise is or should be trying to be compared to the people who have been dedicated to it for, like I said, over a decade at this point. Now, last but not least, this is also a pretty big thing that I'm really hoping they focus on in this game. I really hope they focus on the actual core Battlefield experience. Now, what I mean by that is that there have been a few rumors of a Battle Royale coming with this game as well, and that has obviously come with kind of mixed opinions. Now, for me, I love Battle Royale, so I would actually love that. I'm not going to complain if they add a Battle Royale into Battlefield. They obviously tried it with Firestorm, and I actually think it was decent. It was just the fact that it was locked behind a paywall that it just never really took off. So I'm actually completely okay with them adding a Battle Royale. What I need to say though, is that the Battle Royale cannot take priority when it comes to this game. It cannot be the focus, and it cannot take away resources from the actual base game in terms of like conquest and rush and breakthrough in the actual core 64-player Battlefield experience. It's completely fine to have a Battle Royale. It's completely fine to have whatever other modes they want to have. That stuff's fine, and it could do wonders for the player base. If there's a free Battle Royale that's doing really well, that could just bring in way more players to the game, and that's kind of a win for everyone. It's more players for us to play against, it's more money for them to then spend on the live service, which then in turn leads to us having a longer experience with the game as well. So I think it's fine to have that, and hopefully it does really well. But if that comes at the detriment of the base game, for example, if they focus on the Battle Royale, let's just say they add one and it does really well, and they kind of focus on that and they pull resources from the base game, so there's then less developers working on the actual, you know, conquest content and stuff like that in favor of the Battle Royale, that is not a good thing, and in my opinion that is not worth it. Conquest, rush, breakthrough, the regular Battlefield experience, that needs to be the focus. The single player campaign, a Battle Royale, all those things are definitely still worth doing, but they cannot be the primary focus for DICE. So that's something I really hope they focus on as well. Like I said, I'm fine with a BR. I know a lot of you guys might not be, and I actually completely understand why a lot of people are against it. I'm not even going to argue the fact, because even though I am happy to get one, there's not really much I can say to argue my case. I actually agree with what most other people are saying on the contrary. But like I said, if they're going to add that, they need to do it right, and it needs to be second in line behind the base Battlefield experience. But those are some of my biggest hopes for the upcoming Battlefield game. I'm keen to hear all of your thoughts as well, so be sure to leave them down in the comment section. And like I mentioned before, guys, if you are interested, be sure to go and sign up to the 2-week free trial for Aura. I've done sponsorships with these guys in the past, and they have been absolutely awesome. Everyone that signed up through my code was telling me how good it actually is. They found a lot of data on themselves and stuff, and it actually allows you to be a lot safer online. So be sure to go and check that out. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you all out there on the battlefield.